Jake Morrison stood in front of the large window on the spaceship UES Horizon and watched the alien planet grow bigger as they got closer. The planet looked like a giant crystal ball floating in space with purple and blue colors swirling around. Cities made of what looked like glass covered the surface, and they seemed to glow with their own light. Jake had never seen anything so beautiful in his entire life. Captain Lisa Carter walked up behind him and put her hand on his shoulder. She was a strong woman who had been leading space missions for over 10 years. Her brown hair was pulled back tight, and her uniform was perfectly clean as always. Jake respected her more than anyone else in the military. "Are you ready for this, Morrison?" she asked him quietly. "This is the most important day in human history. We are about to meet an alien race that has been traveling through space for thousands of years while we were still living in caves." Jake nodded and straightened his uniform. He was 28 years old and had been chosen for this mission because he was good at learning new languages and understanding different cultures. The aliens called themselves Zephyrians, and they had sent a message to Earth 3 months ago, saying they wanted to be friends with humans. Nobody on Earth could believe it at first. Dr. Elena Rodriguez joined them at the window. She was the team scientist who studied alien life forms, even though she had never seen a real alien before today. She carried a small computer device that would help her understand Zephyrian biology. Her hands were shaking a little bit from excitement and nervousness. "I have been reading everything we know about them," she said while looking at her device. "They are much taller than humans, and their skin is almost see-through. They can sense electricity and magnetic fields in ways that humans cannot. Their leader is someone called Princess Lirelei, and she will be the one meeting with us today." The spaceship shook gently as they entered the planet's atmosphere. Through the window, they could see the crystal city getting closer and closer. The buildings were so tall, they seemed to touch the clouds, and they were all connected by bridges that looked like they were made of light itself. Flying vehicles moved between the buildings, but they made no sound at all. Captain Carter spoke into her communication device. "All crew members prepare for landing. Remember that we represent all of humanity today. Be respectful and follow my lead at all times." Jake felt his stomach flip as their shuttle separated from the main ship and started flying down toward the landing area. The Zephyrian city was even more amazing up close. The buildings seemed to be alive and changing colors slowly from blue to purple to green. Gardens full of strange plants grew on the sides of the towers, and Jake could see alien creatures flying between them. Their shuttle landed on a platform made of smooth crystal that felt warm under their feet. As they walked down the ramp, Jake could smell something like flowers mixed with electricity in the air. The sky above them was purple instead of blue, and there were 2 suns shining down on them. A group of Zephyrians was waiting for them at the edge of the platform. Jake had to look up to see their faces, because they were all at least 7 feet tall. Their skin was pale and seemed to glow from inside like light bulbs. They wore long robes that moved in the wind, even though Jake could not feel any breeze. Their eyes were large and silver-colored, and they did not have hair like humans do. In the center of the group stood Princess Lirelei. She was the most beautiful creature Jake had ever seen. Her skin glowed brighter than the others, and her robe was decorated with patterns that seemed to move and dance. When she looked at Jake, he felt something strange happen in his chest, like his heart skipped a beat. Captain Carter stepped forward and bowed the way they had practiced on the ship. "Greetings, Princess Lirelei. I am Captain Lisa Carter of the United Earth Space Command. We are honored to meet you and your people." The princess bowed back, and when she spoke, her voice sounded like music. "Welcome, humans from the planet Earth. I am Princess Lirelei, heir to the Zephyrian throne. We have waited many cycles to meet your species." Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward with her scanner and asked permission to study Zephyrian biology. The princess agreed and stood still while the device beeped and flashed. Jake watched as numbers and graphs appeared on the screen, showing that Zephyrians had very different bodies from humans. Then it was time for the part Jake had been nervous about. Captain Carter had explained that humans always shake hands when they meet someone new, and they wanted to show this custom to the aliens. She demonstrated by shaking hands with Dr. Rodriguez and explaining that it was a sign of friendship and respect. Princess Lirelei looked curious and nodded that she understood. Captain Carter shook hands with one of the other Zephyrians, and everything went normally. Then she turned to Jake and said, "Lieutenant Morrison will now demonstrate our greeting with Princess Lirelei." Jake stepped forward and extended his right hand toward the princess. She looked at his hand for a moment, then slowly reached out with her own. Her fingers were longer than human fingers and felt cool to touch. The moment their skin made contact, something incredible happened. Princess Lirelei began to shake violently, like she was being electrocuted. Her glowing skin flickered on and off, and her silver eyes went wide with shock and fear. She made a sound that was part gasp and part scream. The other Zephyrians rushed toward her with worried expressions on their faces. Jake quickly let go of her hand and stepped back, not understanding what had happened. He looked at his own hand, but it seemed completely normal. Captain Carter moved between Jake and the aliens while Dr. Rodriguez quickly scanned Jake with her device to see if something was wrong with him. The princess held up her hand to stop her guards from coming closer, but she was still shaking, and her breathing was fast and shallow. She stared at Jake like she had seen a ghost or monster. The other Zephyrians began talking rapidly in their own language, which sounded like wind chimes mixed with whispers. One of the older Zephyrians, who wore a robe with gold decorations, stepped forward. His face looked angry and worried at the same time. "What have you done to our princess?" he demanded in English. It was harder to understand than the princess had spoken. Captain Carter raised both hands to show she meant no harm. "We do not know what happened. Lieutenant Morrison is completely normal. He has no weapons or dangerous devices. The handshake is a peaceful greeting that humans have done for thousands of years." Dr. Rodriguez looked at her scanner and shook her head. "All of Jake's readings are normal. Heart rate, blood pressure, brain activity, everything is exactly what it should be. I do not detect anything that could have caused this reaction." Princess Lirelei slowly stopped shaking, but she continued to stare at Jake with those large silver eyes. There was something in her expression that Jake could not understand. It was not just fear or surprise. It looked almost like she recognized him, even though they had never met before. The golden-robed Zephyrian spoke again. "This meeting is over. Princess Lirelei must return to the palace immediately. We will contact you later about continuing these discussions." As the Zephyrians began to leave, Jake called out, "Princess, wait. Please tell me what happened. I do not understand what I did wrong." She stopped and turned back to look at him one more time. When she spoke, her voice was quiet and shaky. "You did nothing wrong, human Jake Morrison. But when I touched your hand, I saw something that should not be possible. I must think about what this means before we can speak again." Then she walked away with her guards surrounding her, leaving Jake and his team standing alone on the crystal platform, wondering what had just gone so terribly wrong with humanity's first contact with an alien species. Jake could not sleep that night in his room aboard the UES Horizon. He kept thinking about the moment he touched Princess Lirelei's hand and how she had started shaking like she was afraid of him. He looked at his hands over and over again, but they seemed completely normal. He had shaken hands with thousands of people in his life, and nothing like this had ever happened before. Captain Carter had called an emergency meeting with the entire diplomatic team after they returned to the ship. Everyone was worried that they had somehow ruined humanity's chance to make friends with an advanced alien civilization. The mission had taken 2 years to plan and cost billions of dollars. Now it seemed like it might all be destroyed because of one handshake. Dr. Rodriguez had spent hours running every test she could think of on Jake. She checked his blood, his brain waves, his heart rate, and even the electrical activity in his muscles. Everything came back completely normal for a healthy human male. She found nothing that could explain why touching him had caused such a strong reaction in the alien princess. Maybe their biology is just very sensitive to human contact, she had suggested during the meeting. We know they can sense electromagnetic fields that we cannot detect. Perhaps Jake's natural electrical field was too strong for her nervous system, but Captain Carter was not convinced. If that were true, then why did I not cause the same reaction when I shook hands with the other Zephyrian? There has to be something specific about Morrison that caused this problem. Jake had tried to defend himself. I did not do anything different than what we practiced. I just extended my hand like you showed me. I have no idea why she reacted that way. The next morning, a message came from the Zephyrian palace. It was written in perfect English and delivered on a piece of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. The message said that Princess Lirelei wanted to meet with Jake alone to discuss what had happened. Captain Carter did not like this idea at all. Absolutely not, she said firmly. We cannot risk sending Morrison alone to meet with them. What if this is some kind of trap? What if they think he attacked their princess and they want revenge? But Jake felt that he had to go. Captain, this might be our only chance to fix what went wrong. If the princess wants to talk to me alone, then maybe she can explain what happened. I need to know why I caused her to shake like that. Double quotes. Dr. Rodriguez agreed with Jake. The message seems peaceful. If they wanted to hurt us, they would not ask for a polite meeting. Maybe the princess learned something about Jake that she needs to discuss privately. After much discussion, Captain Carter finally agreed, but only if Jake wore a communication device so the team could hear everything that happened. She also insisted that Dr. Rodriguez accompany him to the edge of the palace grounds in case medical help was needed. That afternoon, a Zephyrian flying vehicle came to pick up Jake. It looked like a crystal bubble with no visible engine, but it flew silently through the air. The Zephyrian pilot did not speak during the journey, but Jake could see the amazing crystal city spread out below them. Gardens full of strange, colorful plants covered the roofs of buildings, and rivers of clean water flowed through crystal channels between the towers. The palace was even more impressive than Jake had imagined. It was built into the side of a mountain and seemed to be carved from one giant crystal. Waterfalls poured down its sides and disappeared into pools that glowed with their own light. As Jake walked through the entrance hall, he saw paintings and sculptures that showed the history of the Zephyrian people. Princess Lirelei was waiting for him in a garden behind the palace. She was sitting on a bench made of smooth stone next to a pool of water that reflected the purple sky above. Strange flowers that looked like they were made of light grew all around the garden, and they made soft musical sounds when the wind touched them. When Jake approached her, he could see that. She looked tired and worried. Her skin was not glowing as brightly as it had been the day before, and her silver eyes seemed sad. She stood up when she saw him, but did not try to shake his hand again. "Thank you for coming, Jake Morrison," she said in her musical voice. "I know. This must be very confusing for you. Please sit with me, and I will try to explain what happened yesterday." Jake sat down on the bench, leaving some space between them so she would not feel uncomfortable. "Princess, I need to know if I hurt you somehow. I have never caused that kind of reaction in anyone before. I do not understand what I did wrong." "Princess." Lirelei looked at the glowing pool of water for a long moment before she spoke. "You did nothing wrong, Jake Morrison. The reaction you saw was not caused by pain or fear of harm. It was caused by something much more complicated. She paused and seemed to be thinking about how to explain something very difficult. My people have abilities that yours do not possess. When we touch another living being, we can sometimes see images of possible futures. It is not something we can control, and it does not always happen. But when I touched your hand yesterday, I saw something. That shocked me to my core. Jake felt his heart start beating faster. What did you see, Princess? I saw a great danger coming to both our worlds, she said quietly. Ships filled with creatures that want to destroy all life in this part of the galaxy. In my vision I saw cities burning and people dying. I saw the end of both human and Zephyrian civilization. Jake felt cold even though the alien sun was warm on his skin. Are you saying that touching me showed you the future, and that future is terrible? Princess Lirelai nodded slowly. But that is not why I was shaking, Jake Morrison. I have seen visions of possible futures before, and while they are disturbing, I have learned to handle them. What made me tremble was what I saw about you. She turned to look directly at him with those large silver eyes. In every vision of the future where our peoples survive this coming danger, you were there. Not just present, but central to our survival. You have some kind of ability or potential that even you do not know about. Something that makes you uniquely important to both our species. Jake shook his head in disbelief. That is impossible, Princess. I am just a regular human soldier. I have no special powers or abilities. I think your vision must have been wrong. Visions are never wrong, she said firmly. They show possibilities, not certainties, but they are always based on real potential. When I touched you, I felt something in your body that was different from other humans. Some kind of energy pattern that matches what we use to power our technology. Jake looked down at his hands again. They still looked completely normal to him. Even if what you are saying is true, what does it mean? What am I supposed to do with this information? Princess Lirelai moved a little closer to him on the bench. I do not know yet. The visions show outcomes, not methods. I know that you will be important to our survival, but I do not know how or why. That is something we must discover together. Together? Jake asked, surprised. Yes, she said. I believe that is why fate brought you here to my world. Not just for diplomacy between our peoples, but for something much more important. I think we need to work together to understand your abilities and prepare for the danger that is coming. Jake felt overwhelmed by everything she was telling him. Yesterday, he had been a simple diplomatic officer on humanity's first contact mission. Now an alien princess was telling him that he might be the key to saving both their civilizations from some unknown threat. How long do we have? He asked. Princess Lirelai looked up at the purple sky where alien birds with crystal wings were flying in formation. The visions were not clear about time. It could be months or it could be years. But the danger is real, and it is coming. We must use whatever time we have to prepare. Jake thought about Captain Carter and Dr. Rodriguez waiting back at the ship. They would want to know what the princess had told him, but he was not sure he should tell them everything. This was bigger than just diplomatic relations between Earth and the Zephyrian Empire. What do you want me to do, Princess? He asked finally. She smiled for the first time since he had met her, and her skin began to glow a little brighter. First, I want you to call me Lirelai. We are going to be working very closely together. Second, I want you to trust me enough to let me help you discover what makes you special. And third, I want you to promise me that you will not give up hope, no matter how impossible everything seems. Jake nodded slowly. I can do all of those things, Lirelai. But I have one condition. What is that, Jake Morrison? I want you to promise me that when the time comes, you will tell me the complete truth about these visions, even if it is something I do not want to hear. Princess Lirelai was quiet for a moment, then reached out her hand toward him. This time, when their skin touched, she did not shake. Instead, Jake felt a warm, tingling sensation flow up his arm, and he saw a brief flash of images in his mind. Spaceships, and explosions and two figures standing together against a dark sky filled with stars. "I promise," she said softly, and Jake knew that his life would never be the same again. Jake did not tell Captain Carter everything about his meeting with Princess Lirelei. When he returned to the ship, he said only that the princess had explained her reaction was due to a natural Zephyrian ability to sense energy fields, and that his human electrical patterns had surprised her. He left out the parts about visions of the future and coming dangers, because he was not sure anyone would believe him. Captain Carter seemed satisfied with this explanation, and the diplomatic meetings resumed the next day. The Zephyrians were polite and friendly as they discussed trade agreements and cultural exchanges between Earth and their empire. But Jake noticed that Princess Lirelei kept looking at him during the meetings with an expression that seemed to say they shared an important secret. Over the next few days, Jake began to notice strange things happening around him. When he touched the control panels on the ship, they seemed to respond faster than usual. Lights would flicker when he walked past them, and his communication device worked better when he held it in his hand. At first, he thought he was imagining these things, but they kept happening more and more often. Dr. Rodriguez noticed the changes too. During a routine medical check, she found that Jake's brainwave patterns had shifted since they arrived on the Zephyrian planet. The electrical activity in his nervous system was stronger than it had been before, and it seemed to be getting more intense each day. "I am not sure what is causing this," she told him privately. "Your body seems to be adapting to something in the environment here. Maybe the electromagnetic fields from the Zephyrian technology are affecting your biology in some way." Jake remembered what Princess Lirelei had said about him having energy patterns that matched Zephyrian technology. He wanted to tell Dr. Rodriguez about the conversation, but he had promised the princess he would keep their discussion secret until they understood more about what was happening to him. That evening, Princess Lirelei sent him another crystal message asking him to meet her in a different location. This time she wanted him to come to the lower levels of the palace where the ancient technology was kept. Jake told Captain Carter he was going for another diplomatic discussion, and she agreed to let him go. Princess Lirelei met him at a hidden entrance that led down into tunnels carved deep into the mountain. The walls were covered with symbols that glowed softly in the darkness, and Jake could hear a low humming sound coming from somewhere far below. As they walked deeper into the tunnels, the humming got louder, and Jake felt a strange tingling sensation in his hands and arms. "What is this place?" Jake asked as they walked past rooms filled with crystal machines that pulsed with colored light. "This is where we keep the technology that powers our entire civilization," Princess Lirelei explained. "Some of these machines are thousands of years old, and others are so advanced that even we do not fully understand how they work. They respond only to Zephyrians who have the right kind of electromagnetic patterns in their nervous systems." They stopped in front of a large crystal structure that was taller than both of them. It was dark and seemed to be turned off, unlike the other machines around it. Princess Lirelei placed her hand on its surface, and it began to glow with a soft blue light. "This is a learning interface," she said. "It can teach someone how to control and focus their natural electrical abilities. I have been using it since I was a child to develop my powers. I want to see if it will respond to you." Jake felt nervous as he approached the machine. What if it does not work? What if I do not have the abilities you think I have? Then we will know that my visions were wrong, she said simply. But I do not think that is what will happen. Place your hand next to mine on the surface. Jake slowly reached out and put his palm against the cool crystal surface next to Princess Lirelei's hand. The moment his skin touched the machine, everything changed. The blue light became much brighter, and spread throughout the entire crystal structure. Jake felt electricity flowing through his body, but it did not hurt. Instead, it felt warm and natural, like the machine was becoming part of him. Images began appearing in the crystal, showing him how to focus his thoughts and direct the electrical energy in his nervous system. He saw how Zephyrians used their abilities to communicate with their technology and control complex systems with just their minds. The machine was teaching him things that should have taken years to learn, but somehow he understood everything immediately. Princes. Lirelai watched in amazement as more and more crystal machines around the room began responding to Jake's presence. Lights that had been dark for centuries started glowing, and ancient computers began displaying information that had been locked away for generations. "This is incredible," she whispered. "You are activating systems that only the most powerful Zephyrian masters can use. Your abilities are much stronger than I expected." Jake felt like his mind was expanding as he connected with machine after machine throughout the underground complex. He could sense the entire crystal city above them and feel the electrical patterns of every Zephyrian living there. It was overwhelming, but also exciting in a way he had never experienced before. But as his abilities grew stronger, Jake began to feel tired and weak. The machines were drawing energy from his body, and he realized that using these powers came with a cost. When he finally removed his hand from the learning interface, he nearly collapsed from exhaustion. Princess Lirelai caught him and helped him sit down on a bench carved from the tunnel wall. "You must be careful, Jake. Your human body is not designed to handle this much electrical energy. We will need to train you gradually so you do not hurt yourself." As Jake rested, he looked around at all the machines that were still glowing and responding to his presence, even though he was no longer touching them. "Lirelai, what does this mean? Why do I have these abilities when no other human does?" She sat down beside him and was quiet for a moment before answering. "I believe you represent the next step in human evolution. Your species is very young compared to ours, but you develop and change much faster than we do. Perhaps some humans are beginning to develop abilities that will allow you to use advanced technology without needing to build it yourselves." Jake thought about the implications of what she was saying. If that is true, then there might be other humans like me scattered around Earth who do not even know they have these abilities. "That is possible," she agreed. "But right now you are the only one we know about, and you are here with us. We must focus on helping you develop your abilities so you will be ready when the danger comes." Over the next several weeks, Jake returned to the underground chambers every evening to train with Princess Lirelai. She taught him how to control his electrical output so he would not burn out the machines or hurt himself. He learned to communicate directly with Zephyrian computers and to understand the complex systems that kept their civilization running. As his abilities grew stronger, Jake began to experience strange dreams filled with images of space battles and alien creatures he had never seen before. Princess Lirelai explained that these were probably echoes of her visions, reaching him through their mental connection when they worked together with the machines. "The danger is getting closer," she told him one evening as they practiced in the crystal chambers. "I can feel it approaching like a storm on the horizon. We do not have much more time to prepare." Jake had been thinking about this problem for days. "Lirelai, even if I learn to use all of these abilities perfectly, I'm still just one person. How can one human make a difference against an enemy that threatens entire civilizations?" She touched his hand gently, and he felt that warm, tingling sensation flow between them. "I do not think you will be fighting alone, Jake. My visions show humans and Zephyrians working together in ways that neither of our species has ever imagined. Your abilities may be the key to making that cooperation possible." Jake looked around at the ancient machines that hummed and glowed in response to his presence. He was beginning to understand that his role in the coming conflict would be much more important than he had ever imagined. But he was also starting to feel something else growing between him and Princess Lirale. As they spent more and more time together, when they worked with the machines, their minds seemed to connect in ways that went beyond just sharing electrical patterns. He could sense her emotions, and she could feel his thoughts. It was creating a bond between them that was deeper than friendship, but more complicated than romance, because they belonged to different species. "There is something else I need to tell you," Princess Lirale said quietly as they prepared to leave the chambers that night. "My visions do not just show you helping to save our civilizations. They also show us becoming much closer than we are now. I do not know exactly what that means, but I wanted you to know." Jake felt his heart start beating faster. He had been trying not to think about his growing feelings for the alien princess, because it seemed impossible and complicated. But hearing that even her visions suggested they would become closer made everything more real and more frightening at the same time. "What do we do about that?" he asked. She smiled, and her skin glowed a little brighter in the darkness of the tunnel. "For now, we focus on preparing for the danger that is coming. Everything else we will figure out when the time is right." Everything changed on the morning that the Zephyrian long-range sensors detected something impossible moving through space toward their system. Jake was in the underground chambers practicing with Princess Lirale when alarms began sounding throughout the crystal city above them. The noise was unlike anything he had heard before, a deep resonant tone that seemed to vibrate through the very stones of the mountain. Princess Lirale immediately stopped what they were doing and placed her hand on one of the communication crystals embedded in the tunnel wall. Her face went pale as she received the message from the surface, and Jake could see fear in her silver eyes for the first time since he had known her. "What is it?" Jake asked, but he already suspected he knew the answer. "The danger I saw in my visions," she said quietly. "It has arrived much sooner than we expected. The outer sensors have detected a massive fleet approaching from the edge of our galaxy. The ships are moving in ways that should not be possible according to our understanding of physics." They hurried to the surface where Jake could see Zephyrians running through the crystal streets with expressions of panic and confusion. Flying vehicles filled the purple sky as officials rushed between the government buildings. The peaceful atmosphere that had surrounded the city for weeks was gone, replaced by the tension of a civilization preparing for war. Captain Carter was waiting for Jake when he reached the palace. Her face was grim, and she had obviously been trying to contact him for some time. "Morrison, where have you been? We have been trying to reach you for an hour. Something big is happening, and the Zephyrians are calling an emergency meeting with all the human representatives." Jake followed her to the main council chamber, where dozens of tall Zephyrians in official robes were gathered around a large crystal display that showed images from space. Dia Rodriguez was already there, taking readings with her scanner and trying to understand what the alien technology was showing them. In the center of the chamber stood the High Chancellor Vex Thul, who Jake had met on his first day on the planet. The elderly Zephyrian looked tired and worried as he addressed the mixed group of humans and aliens. His voice was serious and formal as he began to speak. "Representatives of Earth, we must share with you information that will affect both our civilizations. Our long-range detection systems have identified a fleet of unknown vessels approaching this star system. The ships number in the thousands, and they are moving through space using technology that we do not recognize." Captain Carter stepped forward. "High Chancellor, can you tell us anything about who these beings are or what they want?" The old Zephyrian gestured to the crystal display, and the image changed to show what looked like massive dark ships with organic curves and pulsing lights. Jake felt a chill run through his body as he recognized them from the strange dreams he had been having during his training sessions. "We call them the Devourers," High Chancellor Vex Thul continued. "They are an ancient enemy that appears in our historical records going back thousands of years. They travel between galaxies, consuming the life energy of entire civilizations before moving on to their next target. No species has ever successfully defended against them. Pia Rodriguez raised her hand. How do they consume life energy? What exactly does that mean? Princess Lirelei answered from where she stood near the crystal display. They have the ability to drain the electrical energy from living beings and convert it to power their ships and weapons. Entire planets have been left as dead, empty worlds. After the Devourers pass through, the beings themselves become part of their fleet, turned into hybrid creatures that serve the collective. Jake felt sick as he realized the full scope of what they were facing. How long do we have before they reach this planet? Based on their current speed, approximately 6 days, the High Chancellor replied. We are sending messages to all Zephyrian colonies and military outposts requesting immediate assistance, but even our most advanced warships have never faced an enemy like this. Captain Carter immediately activated her communication device to contact Earth. Command, this is Captain Carter. Aboard UE's Horizon. We have a code-red emergency situation. Request immediate deployment of all available military assets to the Zephyrian home system. We are facing an extinction-level threat. The response from Earth came back within minutes. Admiral Patricia Holmes herself spoke through the communication system, her voice crackling across the vast distance between stars. Captain Carter, this is Admiral Holmes. We are mobilizing every ship we have, but it will take at least 4 days for our fastest vessels to reach your position. Can the Zephyrians hold out until our reinforcements arrive? High Chancellor Vexthal looked uncertain. We will deploy our entire defensive fleet, but based on historical records, the Devourers have never been defeated by conventional weapons. Their ships seem to absorb energy attacks and redirect them back at their enemies. Jake felt Princess Lirelei looking at him from across the chamber, and he understood what she was thinking. This was the moment her visions had shown her the crisis. That would require both human and Zephyrian cooperation to survive. But he still did not understand exactly what role he was supposed to play in the coming battle. After the meeting ended, Princess Lirelei asked Jake to walk with her through the palace gardens. The alien plants seemed to sense the tension in this air, and their usual soft music had become a low, worried humming. The 2 suns in the purple sky appeared dimmer than usual, as if they too were afraid of what was coming. Your visions showed us surviving this threat, Jake said as they sat beside one of the glowing pools. But they did not show us how that would happen. What are we supposed to do against an enemy that has never been defeated? Princess Lirelei was quiet for a long moment, watching the light patterns dance across the surface of the water. The visions are becoming clearer now that the danger is close. I can see more details about what must happen. But Jake, some of what I see is very difficult to accept. Tell me, he said simply. She turned to face him with those large silver eyes that had become so familiar to him over the past weeks. The key to victory lies in combining human unpredictability with Zephyrian technology in ways that neither of our species has ever attempted. You will need to interface directly with our most powerful defensive systems, while human ships provide tactical support that the Devourers cannot predict or counter. Jake nodded. That makes sense. We have been training for something like this. But I can tell there is something else you are not saying. Princess Lirelei reached out and took his hand. The warm, tingling sensation flowed between them, but this time it was mixed with sadness and fear. The level of power required to activate our planetary defense systems is enormous. No Zephyrian has ever attempted to channel that much energy through their body. For a human, the risk is even greater. Jake felt cold as he began to understand what she was telling him. You are saying that using these abilities at full power could kill me. The visions showed different possibilities. She sighed quietly. In some, you survive, but you are changed forever. In others, she stopped speaking and looked away. Jake gently turned her face back toward him. Lirelei, we promised each other that we would always tell the complete truth no matter how difficult it was to hear. What do the other visions show? Tears began to flow down her cheeks, turning into small crystals that caught the light from the alien suns. In the visions where we achieve complete victory over the Devourers, you sacrifice your life to power the defensive grid that drives them away. You save both our civilizations, but you do not live to see the peace that follows. Jake sat in silence, absorbing this information. He had suspected that his role in the coming battle would be dangerous, but hearing it confirmed made everything feel more real and frightening. At the same time, he felt a strange sense of calm, as if some part of him had always known this moment would come.